Recording.
I just want to make sure these are all marked.
Here is the disassembly of an injection mold.
Notice that he's using lead.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Notice that he used a lead piece of metal in order to attempt to open it up. And now he's pulling all the pins out of it. Core pins and ejector pins, but there's more to it than just that. And this particular mold has springs in it. And notice all the water lines already in it. It's a brand new mold that's being inspected. And
Can we split this before you take that off?
Yeah. Grab a screwdriver.
you can shut it off. You don't need more than this.
That's it, man?
I would shut it off.
Don't want to show them the goodies inside.
Putting the pins back in to line it up better when he takes it apart. It's a new mold. He has never taken it apart before. The same one just came in from the mold builders. And before he puts it into the injection machine, what he's doing is taking it apart to inspect it. Inspect it. See how it shuts off.
That aluminum one.
And what the cavity and pores look like.
You going over mods tonight, right?
Yeah.
Huh. This thing is spring loaded. Here, just hit that one off.
Minute. It looks like these pins are a little bit too tight in that particular mold. So a lot of times if it's not made right, it has to be checked in order so that don't gall up the pins.
What is that?
Plastic.
Alright.
Take it apart.
Yeah.
Notice he pulled all the pins off the back end, and he's taking the mold apart further. He's taking the ejector box off, and you'll see the ejector plates there right in the middle of the mold. And this mold has springs in it. You could see the springs as he continues. He's checking all the different pins. He's unscrewing the rails of the mold. And he'll be taking it further off. Hey, Joe. How do you turn this camera on and off? off.
It's just a cool thing,
He's taking the ejector plate off now, and which is bolted together. The backup plate of the ejector plate. Notice there's two plates on there. So he took the backup plate that holds the ejector pins in place off, and now that's that he's holding on is the plate that holds the pins in it. The plate he took off was a plate that makes sure that the pins float together. Notice again that he's using a hammer, a lead hammer or aluminum hammer to take the ejector pins out of the cavity plate. He's marking all the sleeve ejectors so that he could put them back in exactly where they were, which is an important thing. This is a little bit more complicated mold than the plain, simple mold. Now he's finished marking that, and so we can, if we can see the markings. It's rather difficult to see, but each one of those sleeve ejectors is marked so that he'd be able to put it back together exactly the way it came apart, because there might be a little difference in the sleeve ejectors. And notice also he's making sure everything is clean. Always keep your mold clean, your mold surfaces. And the other thing is, we're going to show you the part here that's being made with this particular mold. So you could look at it there and see that it's got undercuts on it.
Let it sit there again.
And these undercuts, especially the one I'll point out right here, makes it difficult to mold. So this is why this mold is a little more complicated than most molds. And there's undercuts down in under here also. And it has to be designed so that when it opens and closes, the part does not stick in there and falls right out automatically. The main thing is that the mold, when it's put in the machine, runs automatically. Otherwise, you have to have an operator. And we don't want to use an operator if we don't have to. There are parts that need an operator. So he's taking the other part of the mold apart again now in the background there, and we'll see what that looks like. Moving this over so you can see what he's doing, and you'll see this young gentleman here working away. Now, this is a brand new mold, and it's never been used put in a machine, and so it has to be inspected before it goes into the machine. And we want to see exactly how it works, making sure everything is clean before it goes into the machine. Rocco is continuing on taking the mold apart. You always have to look for extra bolts that might be holding it together if it's a mold that you're not familiar with.
Bo.
Now he's attempting to pry the two plates apart. And that's
Knock
where you
the
have to
screw
make
bushing
sure
out
you
first.
got all the bolts off. Otherwise, they won't come apart if you can't find all the bolts. So he's going around all the edges a little bit at a time, pulling it apart to see how the mold actually comes apart. There it is. Got the front half apart now, and he's checking for making sure it's clean in the back there, and also up here in front. This yellow sample that you see on top of the mold, here he just picked it up, and you could see he's got it in his hand, is what was already run in an injection molding machine. It was a sample that came with the tool makers sent with this mold here that we're taking apart and really studying. Okay.
So you see all the metal shavings, that's why it's important to pull it apart and clean it all.
Now, like he said, there's metal shavings in there, and that's why it's important to take it apart, make sure that they're all good and clean before we put it in the mold to run. See, what he's doing there is he's cleaning out the bushings, making sure their holes are nice and clean, because if the pin goes in there, he cleaned off the pins and it's still tight, now would be the time to correct it and make it perfect. Notice after he cleaned it very clean that the pins go back and forth easily. Before that they were very tight, a couple of them, and actually stuck in there. So you would think that, well, maybe the mold was wrong, but it wasn't. It was just dirty.
So is it a pin or is it a question?
I just cleaned everything.
Looks like they actually surfaced.
So now what we're doing is greasing and putting the pins back in. So he's assembling the mold now, and after greasing it, oiling it properly. Here he's continuing to assemble and making sure that the pins are loose
See how loose they are?
and run back and forth freely. That's making sure that the mold will operate correctly when put into the machine. So now the backup plate for the sleeve ejectors or ejector pins is being assembled in order to hold those sleeve ejectors so that they don't move without the ejector plate. So he's bolting it on now, keeping the two plates together securely. The front half is being assembled in the background there. So that was all clean. The pins were made sure they're clean, run back and forth freely, and he's bolting them up there in the background. The pins there that will go into the mold have been thoroughly oiled, and now he's putting up the backup plate, and the support bars, and he'll bolt the whole thing together.
We didn't do that. Did you check all
One side of it. I only did them all one.
These pins that are now being put into the back half of the mold have to be made sure, you have to make sure that those pins do not, when put in a mold, do not hit on the ejector pin holes in order to go through the ejector pin hole and move back and forth. They have to be locked in solid.
I already took them all out.
Now he's bolting the backup plate tightly so that the mold is secure and tight. All parts come together nicely. The final backup plate there that he's cleaning up the holes there is going to hold all those pins in together on this particular mold so that they don't wobble back and forth, locking them all in. And he won't have to worry about other holes in the back half in order for the pins to come back up and into those holes in the molding machine. This plate will prevent that.
We measured our spacings too.
Pardon?
We measured the spacing. The spacing is correct.
Good. Cleans it all nice and clean so that it goes together nicely. So, making sure that backup plate lines up correctly and the bolt holes line up so that he can put the bolts in and tighten that plate right to the rest of the mold.
Alright, Dan. Here.
This is the final touches, and he just got done greasing up the face of the mold here, and the mold, and it's a great joy. We're putting this mold together now, and he'll be right back here, and he'll be putting the two halves together. As we could see, both of them. He'll turn that mold around a little bit so we could see it. Better? Yeah, there it is. Isn't that beautiful? 8 cavity mold. And he's going to start putting it together now. So he takes and he's facing one half with the other half. And all we could see now is his back, but that's okay. Yeah, you could see it coming together here. He's going to tap it all together. Make sure the pins are in. And there goes the mold. It's going in. And it's closing up. And then we'll be ready to take this mold and put it in the machine.
Alright, good. Go ahead.
Mold was just put into the press here and clamped in. And he's still working on the clamp, clamping the mold into the injection press here. Molding machine, and
Center knockout rod.
we can see the machine here, the hopper up there. I don't think they put the material in yet, but this is the machine here. We can see it closing. They're just trying it now, opening and closing, and running the screw back.
It's clamping it right now. It's adjusting the clamp height.
And they're adjusting the clamp. The machine adjusted by itself. We can see the man here working on the hopper and putting some plastic into it, into the hopper.
Like a lot more finer of a
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seems like a lot finer tune than the other one. Good?
They're also getting used to this machine because it's a new machine. The first time it's being opened and closed with a mold in it.
Shut that off.
So we'll focus in on the
Hey, do you want to file all these things?
computer basically here. See, it's right up. That is the control panel or computer.
I just put it right in the flat.
It works like a computer.
Get one of those wrenches or Allen.
And we're going back to the mold
Yeah, just put it right in the flat.
here.
I got jack screws for you. You get one of those short washers.
And we'll be opening and closing this again. back up on this a little bit so you can see more of exactly what's being done. He's clamping the back half. He's putting the clamps on the back half of the mold right now.
Notice the ocean with the foot box.
This is the same mold that we seen on the bench. That it's an 8 cavity mold, so it should make 8 pieces at one time. Now, this is the first time this mold is being put into a machine, and we will be trying to run it. We'll see how it works out.
From the
Well,
back,
there's only 4 bolts on that panel.
is it from the back of this thing?
I look, I didn't see anything. I'll ask.
Or inside?
This
maybe?
is the
Oh, that's what it is.
back of a machine here, and we can see all these lines here, lubricating lines and different rods and so on. And we're looking at the mold here in the machine. Those are the water lines there, where the water hoses will be hooked up eventually to cool the plastic.
I'm gonna open it, Rock.
What's up?
I'm gonna open it.
Yeah, go for it.
Will you shut that door, Rocco? Huh? Will you shut that electrical cabinet?
Here he's opening and close it to make sure that
Oh, we got.
Everything
did you
works
take out the
right.
center ejector bar?
and
Right down there?
Well, we got tighten those 2 acorn nuts.
You gotta tighten it.
checking
back
the
here.
mold
Yeah.
You gotta close it.
that it's tightened properly and everything's functioning right.
That's good. Hand me it.
They've just brought the heating cylinder up, the nozzle up to the mold. And he's looking at some adjustments in there that
Set
he's making.
the nozzle.
And he's backing up the nozzle away from the mold,
Alright, let's purge it now.
and he's going to purge it. I don't know if I could show a purging shot because I don't have enough of cord to get over there.
I got another outlet right here, Dan. We got an outlet right here.
Well, you have to change it then.
Alright. No, you
The
got
mold is now open, and he'll be closing it pretty soon. And we hope that it will inject some material into the mold. But we're checking things out here, looking it over, trying to see what's happening, or the injection cylinder just backed up.
What about the speed?
I'd do like 10 at most. Take the return speed
Here we should be closing that mold again. We'll see if he does here in just a second. There it is. He's closing the mold. And checking it again for
down. Air in
opening.
there. Air in there.
Closing it again. And opening it.
It's just air in there.
This is
We're ready to.
Yeah, you got the temperature and the pressure halfway right.
check.
I could go like 800.
That is the control box there. They're adjusting temperatures, die opening, die closing. So we'll get more specific on these things later.
Here, Joe, I'll get this.
The mold is closed now. We're hoping that we have injected material into it. We'll see here in just a minute when we open it what happens. Parts are stuck in the front. The gate's ejected. We have some work we got to check out.